Welcome to the Richard Sherman podcast. Make sure you like and subscribe to the Volumes YouTube channel to get more content. We coming at you 2 times a week. Subscribe now. All right, welcome to the Richard Sherman podcast. We're back at it again. Another crazy week of football, Mitchell. Like, what is going on?
Richard, we talked about it last week. Layup line, bounce back game, gimme game, right? There's no gimmies in football, but this was a gimme game. Tampa Bay Buccaneers firing up against the Carolina Panthers. Richard, they lose 21-3. You tell me what's going on, man. Is it time to sound the alarm in Tampa?
I mean, they better start sounding something. We got them next week, TNF, and that game isn't a gimme. You know, they got the Baltimore Ravens, who's coming off a hard-fought division win, and they just don't have any answers, any red zone answers. I mean, Tom Brady still throws for 290. You know, Mike Evans drops a would-be touchdown early in the game, and he said it after the game that he just felt like that deflated the team, and he was right. I mean, it's crazy because, you know, in Carolina, they're sitting there like, hey, we're going to get the number 1 draft pick. Cool, the season's over. We lost our coach. Like, they packed it in. They mailed it in. You lose 21-3 to a team that has mailed it in. Like, sheesh. Like, I don't understand. It's only Brady's 3rd game with the Bucs scoring 3 points or less. He had 2 in 2 seasons with the Patriots. And my goodness, there are a lot of concerns. P.J. Walker played a really solid game, 16 for 22, 177, 2 touchdowns, and they ran the ball well. Deontay Foreman, 15 rushes, 118, 2 catches, 27 yards. But my goodness.
Richard, this game surprised everyone, including Las Vegas. And when it surprises Las Vegas, you know that's a shell shock. I was reading an article after the game. At a prominent casino in Las Vegas, only 4 patrons bet Carolina plus 13. Only 4, Rich. All the money was on the Bucs to cover big time. They blow them out by 18 points.
Mitchell, it wasn't even a thought to bet against the Bucs. I mean, who in their right mind would have bet against them? Even plus 13, you're like, okay, maybe they don't beat them by 13. Maybe it's the NFL, another team plays hard, they beat them by 10. But there's nobody that expected the Panthers to realistically win this game. If anybody had that on their parlay, please send me your number, your info, because you got some inside information and I need a hold of it.
I got another game for you, Rich. We're sounding the alarms in Tampa Bay. Are we sounding alarms in another bay up north? The Green Bay area, Rich?
Mitchell, you better be sounding the alarms. You better be sounding them loud and clear in Green Bay. I mean, there's concern early, but then it's always like, you got A-Rod. Like relax, you know, RELAX, relax. Like, you got A-Rod. It's going to be okay. You're 3-4. You just lost to the Washington Commanders. No offense to the Washington Commanders, but they've lost their starting quarterback. They're on to their backup quarterback. They're not expected to do a lot. I'm guessing Vegas took a bloodbath on this, took a bath on this. Yeah. Taylor Heineke comes out and says, hey, I can get the job done too. 2 touchdowns, 20 for 33, but Brian Robinson making a big impact again. 20 rushes, 73 yards, 2 catches, 13 yards, and Terry McLaurin going off. So it's like, hey, what's going on in Green Bay?
Antonio Gibson had a day as well. I mean, the Commanders' offense looked pretty good. I mean, we haven't seen this in a while. We haven't seen it all season. They were putting points on the board. They took a big lead early. I mean, Green Bay made it a game late. You expect them to with A-Rod, but they couldn't overcome. And it's amazing to me, and we talked about it last week, Rich, the parity in this league right now. I don't know. It just seems to be more than the last few seasons. We've seen teams that we thought were bottom dwellers that'd be useless, you know, top 5 picks, beat up on these teams that have big names. I mean, the Green Bay Packers have a big name. They've had big name for 15, 20 years, Rich. Is it just the falling of a giant or what is truly going on right now?
It's everything. You know, it's parity. It's losing players. It's, you know, the league has to always come back around. You know, everybody's got to have a chance in this league. That's why people watch the National Football League. But if you're the Green Bay Packer fans, you're just sitting there sick because you had chances to still win this game. You still had chances with everything that went wrong. You still got a muffed punt by Amari Rodgers. You had the illegal contact that offset a fumble return touchdown by Eric Stokes. I mean, you're sitting there like, bro, everything that could go wrong, is going wrong. And look at Minnesota. They're 5-1. And if they're 6-1, again, the Aaron Rodgers Invitational is not what it once was.
It's over early. It is over early, Rich. I mean, we talked about there's no need to revisit it, but we talked about, I feel like, on every single podcast. The Green Bay Packers wide receiving core is a major, major problem.
It's an issue.
And I feel like it's willful negligence, Rich, going into this season, expecting what they expected from this receiving core with pretty much slim to no experience and having a Hall of Fame legend and Aaron Rodgers. I mean, he's got a lot left in the tank, but he's got no one to give it to. And enough's enough. I mean, sign Odell Beckham Jr., do your best to come back in this division and go from there.
They're going to have to get desperate, because their defense is playing relatively well. You look up and you're like, I mean, they're battling every week. It's not like they're getting blown out, but it's like you need points. And where are you going to find them? I don't have answers for you right now. They better get very active because the trade deadline is coming up fast, and they have not made movement yet. And if they don't, I guarantee you there's a very unhappy man wearing number 12 in Green Bay, Wisconsin, and that's no question. But what about the Niners? No way. Like, you just got Christian McCaffrey. The offense is supposed to be buzzing. And the defense is a powerhouse. And, you're getting guys back from injury. And, of course, they got to work their way back in. But I just expected a better game than this. And especially, you have a game where Jimmy Garoppolo throws for 303 and 2 touchdowns. He throws an interception, too. But you're expecting, they might have got this one.
And the turning point was at the close of the first half. And when you're driving down, the 49ers are driving down, have an opportunity to score right before the half, and Jimmy seemingly throws up what looks like a gift. I mean, it was a pretty easy interception. I know he was under pressure, but still, I mean, you got to walk away with points at the end of the first half. I mean, to make matters worse, Kansas City Chiefs drove right down the field. Fortunately for the Niners, Harrison Butker missed that field goal, but the game seemed to just turn at that point.
But even in that point, you sit there and say, okay, you dodged a bullet. You got the muffed punt, which should have been automatic points.
Right.
It should have been automatic. And okay, you fumble that one. Like, I mean, you throw an interception. So it's like, okay, like you're disappointed already. And then you let them drive down, and then they get no points. That's at least a 6-point swing, if not more. You're expecting Patrick Mahomes, he's drove down the field like that. You're expecting 7 points out of that. So you're expecting it to be at least a 10-point swing. They avoided that, but the momentum, they never recaptured it. And honestly, Kansas City just had their way with him. You think, hey, they don't have Tyreek. He's not missing Tyreek. I got to give it to that. I mean, Charvarius Ward is still banged up. Like, we got to figure that out. Jimmy's banged up. Talanoa Hufanga was having a really good game until he got banged up. Like, the injuries just keep mounting up. Not sure what happened to Trent Williams. He seemed to be battling back, and hopefully they get him back soon. But it's just like, my goodness, man. Like, 44 points is not an elite defense giving up. And you would think, hey, maybe there's a pick six in there, a special teams touchdown. There was not. McCole Hartman had 3 touchdowns, 2 rushing, 1 receiving. Chris Jones had 2 sacks. Frank Clark showed up, 1.5 sacks. Juju Smith-Schuster went off, 7 catches, 124 and a tug. And Patrick Mahomes, 423, 3 touchdowns in that interception by Talanoa. It's like, my goodness. It's National Tight Ends Day, but come on.
The whole Kansas City Chiefs roster went off. I got to ask, the Chiefs, the Bills, these teams seem to be the bar, right? I mean, these are the
don't
teams
leave the Eagles out.
I'm talking about, right. Don't leave the Eagles out. But in terms of the AFC, the teams that you're likely to see in the Super Bowl, if the San Francisco 49ers so want to be there, what does this do to your psyche as a competitor, knowing that you got smacked on your home turf by 19 points against a team that you could, if you get there, see in the Super Bowl?
21, Mitchell. They got 21, Mitchell. Good night.
21.
It's demoralizing. It's demoralizing, no question. But this team has turned around better from more than this last season. They were 3-5, came back, made it to the NFC Championship. So they're never going to die. They're never going to say die, never going to give up. They have too much talent. They're too good of a team. they're going to be a problem for somebody in the NFC, but they have to get it turned around. You have to find these answers. That defense has to play better because, I mean, you're not going to play the Kansas City Chiefs every week, but if you play them and it looks like this, I'm concerned. I'm concerned about what happened, why it happened, and if those things are even correctable. You know, there aren't a lot of answers coming from corner. You know, Emmanuel Mosley is not returning this season. Jimmy Ward is going to have that cast on for a few more weeks. So you got to come up with answers. I'm not sure Nick Bosa is 100%. Like, you need Eric Armstead back. You need Javon Kinlaw back. But who knows when those guys will be back. So you have to, like, keep the ship afloat without them. And you turn around and look, the Seattle Seahawks, who's supposed to be nothing, who's supposed to be the bottom dwellers of this division, are sitting there rolling. They're rolling. Geno has them rolling. Your boy, Kenneth Walker Jr., has them rolling. So it's even more concern for the San Francisco 49ers because, like, the division isn't happening how you thought it was.
And they got the Rams away in LA next week. It does not get any easier, but I got to ask the difficult question, Richard.
Don't ask him, Mitchell.
I have to. Going into the season, the team expressed a little bit of doubt in Jimmy G. They named Trey Lance the starter. They designated this Trey Lance's team. And here we have it. Jimmy G gets his opportunity. He comes back. How much faith do you have in Jimmy G after a performance like this? A game that seemed to slip away from them and really there was no sign of fight.
It's wavering, no question. I mean, it has to be wavering. But again, they have come back from bigger holes than this. So it's the finger isn't just pointed at Jimmy G. It's everywhere right now. So if this was like a defensive battle like it was in Denver and they only scored, the other team only scored 11 points and you still lost the game, then I'm sure it'd be a lot more finger pointing at Jimmy G. But they were moving the ball on offense. Sure, he missed opportunities when they had to have points, when they needed to have points. Those were missed out. But we have to get people stopped. 44 points on the board is unacceptable for a top 5 defense, and that's what they are. They have top 5 talent everywhere on the board, and they have to play better, and they know that, and they will. But right now, it's a lot of man in the mirror kind of deal, conversations. Like, everybody got to look at and get that person fixed before they can point the finger at anybody else.
And there is pressure in the division, Rich. I mean, you just said it. The Seattle Seahawks, 4-3. No one saw it coming. If I had told you at the beginning of the year, 7 weeks into the season, the Seattle Seahawks are in first place of the NFC West, your response?
Mitchell, I'd be like, they must have an all-decade coach. They must have a heck of a guy coaching that team. They must have a guy because who do they have on the offensive line? 2 rookie tackles? How are they making that work? Who's under center? Like, who's in the backfield? A rookie? Who's at the corner spots? What's going on? That's Michael Jackson and not the singer at the corner spot? Like, and another rookie that you got in the 5th round? Who's your nickel? Another rookie? Oh, my God. What's going on? But you know what you got? You got a veteran Pro Bowl safety. You got Al Woods in the middle. Jordan Brooks has been playing well. And they got guys that believe. Like, that's what this culture was built on. It was built on confidence and belief. And each week you can see those boys believing a little more. This week, Kobe Bryant made another play. He's made plays every week since he's been there. And you're looking, every week you see big impact from these guys drafted this year. You don't see Geno's jersey very dirty on Sundays. He had a very efficient, very positive game, 20 for 27, 210, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. And then your boy, Kenneth Walker Jr., going crazy. Like 3 games, I think he's had 53 carries last 3 games for 384 and 4 or 5 touchdowns. Like he's going crazy. And they got to be excited about that. But they lost DK Metcalf. We're not sure how serious the injury is. But Marquise Goodwin, my guy, shows up in a big way. You feel terrible because on one of his touchdown catches, the Chargers lose J.C. Jackson to a dislocated kneecap. But I mean, both sides of this. The Chargers were playing well. So this isn't like, hey, the Chargers just gave this one away. No, they got beat. Ryan Neal had an interception. He's playing well for them. You got to give Pete and that staff a ton of credit. The offensive and defensive staff, Shane Waldron. You got to give all of them, Clint Hurt, all of them, a lot of credit for what they're doing.
And Richard, they're winning it with relative ease. You know, they're getting ahead of their opponent early. And they're holding them off. You know, I mean, we saw it last week against the Cardinals. I mean, this team is building something, what appears to be special. right? I mean, Geno Smith, the quarterback position that was, we thought it was going to be a weakness for this team. It's not. They've got really good offensive weapons. If they can stay healthy, they're battling a little bit of an injury bug now with DK going down, but they've been able to stay relatively healthy. Their defense is coming along. I mean, you asked for it 3 weeks ago. When they were playing against the Lions and they gave up 45 points in a win. You said they need to show up, and then they proceeded to give up 39 against the Saints. Back-to-back weeks. Defense playing well. This is a team in the Chargers that was 4-2 coming into this game with Justin Herbert, a guy we thought was an MVP candidate coming into the season. And they got ahead early and controlled this game. If you had never watched football before in your life and you flipped on this game, you would have thought the Seahawks were one of the best teams in the league, Rich. Tell me I'm wrong.
You would have. You no question would have. You would have thought, man, this guy at quarterback, he has to be a Pro Bowler. He has to be an All-Star for this league, and he's on pace to be one. If they're doing Pro Bowl voting, Geno Smith better get a Pro Bowl vote this year. And if he keeps this up, he might sneak in and get an All-Pro vote. Who knows? But he better be on the NFC's Pro Bowl team because he's playing like one of the best quarterbacks on that side of the football, especially with Tom and Aaron having down years. Like, Geno Smith is showing up in a big way and earning himself a lot of money next year. I bet the Seahawks wish they had him tied up for a few years right now because, of course, they're looking to use that other pick that they got from Denver, which, oh, my God, Mitchell, the Fighting Salas, the New York Jets, don't look now. The Giants are 6-1 too. Like, let's give them credit. Let's give Brian Daboll a lot of credit. But there's a lot of things happening right now, but there's positive things in Seattle.
No question about it. And Rich, I don't want to say I called it, but I did call it. We have data, we have proof. We got all these podcasts recorded. Kenneth Walker III has got to be the rookie of the year front runner right now out of Michigan State. Give the man his glory. This guy is the thunder and lightning of the Seahawks. I called it, Rich. I called it, and I love to see it. But you mentioned it. The Fighting Salas. Let's move over to the Big Apple. We got a lot of excitement in the U.S.'s biggest media market, the Big Apple, New York. The Fighting Salas, Rich. They come out victorious again.
Again, Mitchell, again. And they're 5-2. Like, they have more wins right now than they've had in a few different seasons. Than they had last year, 18, 20. Like, Mitchell, they got 5 wins 7 games into the season. Like, nobody expected this. If Daboll and Kevin O'Connor weren't 6-1 and the Eagles 7-0, you'd be screaming that he's coach of the year. But unfortunately, everybody, there's some young coaches that are getting the job done in a big way. But my goodness, it's just terrible because you're sitting there, you're sad because they lost their biggest playmaker, their rookie of the year candidate in Breece Hall, who was having a magnificent season, and then he's just gone, Mitchell. ACL, it's devastating. It's deflating. He gave them their only touchdown of the day today on a 62-yard touchdown run, and he's been explosive for them all year. You just hate to hear that, but this team, the defense played well. 9 points, held the Denver Broncos to 9 points. The lowest scoring offense in National Football League, but they did their job defensively. But my goodness, man, I'm so excited for both teams.
And then the Giants. We talked about it last week, Richard. This team, I wasn't sure if they were the best team in this game again, but they figured out a way to win.
Right.
And that's all they continue to do. That's all they continue to do is just win the game. The New York Giants are 6-1.
Yes.
Let that sink in. They are 6-1. This NFL, everyone says it every year. There's a worst to first candidate every year. It's remarkable to see, though. How does this happen? Honestly, Richard, every single year, a team comes out of nowhere. And this year, it's the Jets and it's the Giants.
Because a coach is using his personnel how they need to be used. He's not saying, hey, I have this offense and I got to make Daniel Jones play like Josh Allen and I got to make these receivers play like Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis. And no, you don't. You say, who do we have? I'm going to play to their strengths. I'm going to install plays. I'm going to install plays that puts Daniel Jones in positions where he can use his legs. He can use his arm when he can, but we're going to run him. We're going to pass it. Hey, Saquon Barkley, I'm going to run you. You're going to have 24 carries. Like, Hey, you're back. Saquon's back. 24 carries for 110 yards. Like, yes, he's back. But Daniel Jones, 11 carries for 107 yards. They're not afraid to run him. And he's not afraid to do it. He says, hey, this is what I do well. This is my way of making the offense really effective. I'm happy to do it. And that's why they're having so much success. And their defense is playing really good football. And sometimes you just get lucky. They had a play at the end of the game where they could have lost. Game could have been over the other way. Jacksonville throws a deep pass, but again, they fight the guy off with seconds remaining on the clock. It literally went 0 with them at the 2-yard line. Like, if they would have got another play, they likely would have scored a touchdown and they would have lost. But again, it doesn't matter about if ifs were a fifth, we'd all be drunk. That did not happen. The New York Giants are 6-1, and they're beating the teams in front of them. Every week, they're like, who have they beat? Just about everybody in front of them. They've lost one game. But every other team that showed up in front of them, they've beaten. And they've beaten them on other continents. So, like, at some point, you got to just give them credit.
We saw the Dallas Cowboys play today. Granted, they were playing against the my lowly Lions. But what, in your mind, is bringing Dak Prescott back to this team do? Does this get the team back into Richard Sherman's top 5 power ranks for the week?
It might sneak them back in there. I mean, Dak played well. Your Detroit Lions make it really tough. I mean, they were doing so well. I was cheering for them, Mitchell. I wanted them to do well. I wanted them to be the team I wanted them to be. But again, they're splitting carries between Tony Pollard and Ezekiel Elliott. Mitchell, we talked about this before. They are splitting carries. And Tony Pollard is, again, averaging 6.9 a carry, and Zeke is averaging 3.8 a carry. But Zeke has 2 touchdowns. Like, Zeke is still their lead back. He's the big money back, and he's going to be. But Tony Pollard is earning his carries. Now, there are some issues in pass protection, sure. But he is more than making that up when he's toting the rock. And Dak didn't have to do a ton. I was concerned about what they would do when Dak came back. Would they go away from running the ball that way? They did not. They did not make Dak throw it 43 times. They said, hey, Dak, you throw it 25, we'll run it 35 or 32. Perfect. That's successful football. And then guess what else we'll do? We'll let Dan Quinn's defense work. And they did.
This Dallas Cowboys team, granted against the lowly Lions, I mean, the Lions had 5 turnovers in this game, a lot to do with what Dallas did on the defensive side of the ball. But I don't want to make this show too much about the Detroit Lions. They got off on a hot start this year. They were competitive in games. They were everyone's sweetheart being on Hard Knocks. They gained a ton of fans. Everyone had so much confidence in Dan Campbell, right? At what point does the rah-rah and hype speeches, do they just give up?
Well, it's probably right about now, Mitchell. Right about now, they're assuming they're going to draft top 5. But I can't talk about them. I'm not going to waste time talking about the team that with one win. I'm going to talk about the Dallas Cowboys defense because Micah Parsons is Defensive Player of the Year candidate. Dan Quinn's defense had five sacks. Trayvon Diggs, again, showing up in a big way, got an interception in the game. And Jordan Lewis got an interception in the game. Like, they're playing really good, sound football. Like, this isn't a mirage. This isn't like an aberration. This is these guys playing really solid, sound, fundamental football, and that's what makes them a tough team to deal with. That division is going to be a bloodbath because 3 teams could easily win that division down the stretch. I know the Eagles are out front now, but they take one loss, and now all of a sudden the Giants are in control. And they got to play the Cowboys again. They got to play the Cowboys with Dak this time. It'll be a little different for the Philadelphia Eagles. I'm looking forward to that game later in the year. But who would have thought the NFC least would be the best conference in the National Football League, and it's not even close.
Well, we got to delete the first podcast we did because we certainly did not think that.
We did not.
And it wasn't it. I was kind of on board with you as well. Richard, we're going to see you on Thursday night. It's going to be another fun one. Finally, Tampa Bay, you get to sail down to some sunny weather against the Baltimore Ravens. But in the meantime, we got a Sunday night football game to watch and a big game on Monday night featuring the Bears and the Patriots. I'll let you sign us off in culmination of this Sunday night.
Well, I appreciate you guys. We got a big one in the Steelers and Dolphins. I think Tua comes back and continues. He's leading the league in QBR and doing his thing before he left. I think he comes back and does well. hoping for his health. We don't want any craziness to happen. But I'll see you guys on Thursday night. TNF tonight starts at 7 p.m. Eastern. We got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and, of course, the Baltimore Ravens. See if Tom can turn it around. I can't wait. See you there. See you next week. Hit the sub button if you're new. See you soon.